My name is
Welcome.
Charles Jennings. I'd like to welcome you today. This is a seminar for the Christian Regenhard Center for Emergency Response Studies at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. For those of you who are new to us, we are an applied first responder policy research center at John Jay College, named after Christian Regenhard. Christian Regenhard was a probationary FDNY firefighter who died on 9/11 in the collapse of the World Trade Center. Today, we're really very pleased to have a special guest with us. And remarkably, this first time he's appeared on one of these seminars, although he's certainly well known to all of us. And I'll share a story about Chief Dunn later in the talk that kind of puts him at the beginning of my career, such as it is. And so Vincent Dunn is well known in the industry, retired deputy chief with FDNY and an acknowledged expert, and really one of the first fire service experts to dedicate a lot of attention to the issues of building construction as it relates to firefighting and the notion of the fireground as a battle space. And his new book is entitled The Skyscraper Battlespace. And he's here with us today. Some guests are so big that it takes two interviewers to handle them, and so we did a special call for Glenn Corbett, and so Glenn is going to assist today. And what we're going to have today is really something of a book talk, but more of a kind of a free-ranging conversation. And with that, Glenn, I'll go ahead and let you formally introduce the chief.
Thanks, Charles. It's one of those moments where what do you say, right? I mean, the man needs no introduction, I think, probably to everybody that's on this call right now. So, Chief Dunn's, is an icon in the fire service. He started back in 1958 in the New York City Fire Department, rose up through the ranks, lieutenant, captain, battalion chief, all the way to deputy chief. He, of course, some of you may have seen him discuss the tragic and unfortunate 23rd Street fire, which he was actually there that day. But, we know him particularly today now from, particularly in my mind, as sort of the educator, book author. That's his current role, basically, is education and putting out a variety of different textbooks, as Charles just mentioned, for the entire fire service. One of the unique things about John Jay College is that we reside within his former district, the 3rd Division in Manhattan. And again, won't belabor the point, but this is really the high-rise capital of America, really. And Chief Dunn has had so many incidents that he's responded to, and maybe we'll hear a little bit more about, particularly the Lionel Hampton fire, which he and I had discussed several years ago, which is one of the more, I would say, more modern high-rise, major modern high-rise fires, in which particularly the construction was involved. And also right next door to John Jay College, another significant fire, which started Macaulay Culkin's sibling and mother's apartment, basically, many years ago in the 90s. So again, when you think of high-rise firefighting, the first name that comes to mind is Chief Dunn. So we want to thank him for being here today and for really being a friend to the fire service. And it's remarkable that Vinny's found a whole new life online on Facebook and all sorts of other ways that allows him to really reach out to all over the country and really around the world to reach out to particularly young people. And I'll mention one last thing here. Chief Dunn has been a wonder for us. I'm a New Jersey guy, and we have a group of Deputy and Battalion Chiefs Association in New Jersey, and it's probably one of the most active groups in the state. For a variety of issues on policies and things like that. But what really is notable about it, we had a recent seminar in Jersey City about 4 or 5 months ago. And what was remarkable about it was the reach that Chief Dunn has even to the youngest of the fire service. There was a young man there who drove all the way in from Ohio specifically because they wanted to meet and hear Chief Dunn speak. So it was a remarkable time. This young man had no idea that, that he'd make a close bonding relationship with the chief. And like I said, that's really what Vinny and Chief Dunn is all about. So welcome, Chief Dunn, to the Regenhard Center's event. I also, one additional note, I see Sally Regenhard is on the call here, so we might hear from her later on. So
fine.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you very much. We're all set, and I got some great questions from Charles Jennings. He sent them to me, very deep subjects, and I have spent some time, and I will refer to my notes here. They were very interesting questions. So anyway, I will start with the first question. He asked me, Professor Jennings asked me, what did my Skyscraper Battlespace book contribute to my life's work? And actually, it is my culmination. I have to say, I thought about that. What does this book mean? It is the culmination of all of my books. I think I have finally finished it. I remember when I retired in 2000, I said, I just spent 15 years fighting these fires in high-rise office buildings. See, now, this book I wrote distinguishes between residential buildings where most of the fires occur and most of the people die, I acknowledge, and I have a chapter towards it, but I concentrate in this book on high-rise office buildings, which are really the monster fires, the ones that we cannot extinguish. If the sprinklers fail, or the standpipes fail, or the elevators fail. These are monster fires. And so they were my battle space for the last 15 years of my career. And I said, I have to document these fires. So, and also, I do believe that throughout America, you're getting these business parks. And they used to be industrial parks, but now they're office building parks being developed. And inside of these business parks are high-rise office buildings going up. So they're going to be a considerable fire problem. They're not as great as the residential high-rise, I admit that, but they are so terrifying and so such a monstrosity. Now, the three big office building fires in the 20th century, that was One New York Plaza. New York City suffered that in the 1970s. The fire went from one floor to another in a fire-resistant building, and that shocked the heck out of everybody in the fire service. These buildings were supposed to confine a fire to one floor, barring an explosion or a collapse. In One New York Plaza, there was no explosion or collapse, and fire spread from the 33rd to the 34th floor in the fire-resistant building, and that really shook everybody up. Then, in the decade of the 1980s, we had the first interstate fire out in LA and Los Angeles, and that was a 5-floor fire. We saw the sprinkler was shut off in error, but we saw the fire service couldn't extinguish it, this office building fire, and it spread 5 floors. So that terrified everybody in the fire service. And the decade of the 1990s, we had it was really the precursor of 911. If you look at that fire, you say, it was warning us about what was going to happen in 911, because at the Meridian Plaza fire in the 1990s, the last monster fire in the 20th century, fire went 9 floors, and the structure started to become unstable. And the structural engineer said to the chief, Olshafer, you better get those firefighters out of there. That building looks like it's unstable. Cracks were happening in the wall and stairways. And that commissioner abandoned the high-rise firefighting in there, let that building burn. And that was the first time in the history. They withdrew all the Philadelphia firefighters from the Meridian Plaza fire and let that fire burn. And it went floor to floor, 9 floors, until there was sprinklers on the top, 8 or 9 floors. And then the sprinkler system started working and put the fire out. But they bad design in that building. They sprinkled the lower floors and cellar and let the middle of the building be unsprinkled and then sprinkled the top 8 floors. So naturally, when that fire burned in the middle floor, it spread floor to floor. That fire dispelled any credibility of passive fire resistance, where a building could resist fire by the construction. We now know that's not true, and we now know that was a very stable structure, but that started crumbling and cracking. And I remember 10 years later reading the Wall Street Journal that there was litigation for 10 years on that building. The owner wanted to reshape and straighten out those bowed steel columns that were heated by the fire, straighten them out and reoccupy the building. And the tenants wanted no part of it. They went to court to fight the owner and said, no, we think the building is unstable. We don't want to move back in there ever. And after 10 years, the judge made the decision. Yes, that Meridian Plaza building is unstable, made unstable by that fire, uncontrolled fire, and they demolished that high-rise building. So that was, I believe that was the warning sign we had for 911. I mean, and funny, after I retired, little side story. I remember I said, I got to do something with this high-rise information I got. What am I going to do with it? And I produced a training video, high-rise firefighting strategy, 1999, 2000 actually. And we finished it, we put it out, and 911 came. And now guys got angry. They thought I was capitalizing on 911. So we shut it down. We never advertised it, but it's on YouTube for free. So if you want to see what I had to say about high-rise firefighting on video, besides this program now, it's on YouTube. Vincent Dunn, high-rise Battlespace. But so I put that video on there. That was everything I said. Before I forget, before I get old and forget, I better put this on video. So I made a video training film, high-rise firefighting. And now, 15 years, 20 years later, I've been retired. God willing, my brain is still working. I got a book. I put down a little more detail than the 30-minute video in a book on Skyscraper office building. That's really what I'm directing it at. Skyscraper office building fires. Okay, so
let's Glenn, do you have any response to that?
Yeah.
And while you're thinking of one, let me just say, this is one of the things I think that makes you one of the greats. And I don't say that lightly, because there's a lot of people out there who are great, but they're great in their own minds. But they're the greats is that in the fire service, there's so much knowledge that's out there, but it rattles around inside the heads of the officers and the firefighters, and they retire and they go off and they take that with them. Some of it gets passed on through policy. Some of it gets passed on around the kitchen table through stories. But my God, we need people who have the capacity and the interest to write this stuff down, because as you know, right, each generation, some of that knowledge is lost, right? And when we look, it's when the fires occur in the built environment doesn't change necessarily, right, as much. Like they had the fire yesterday, the second alarm at the Sherry Netherland off Central Park, right? Well, that was was it 1930? Yes. They had the big fire at that hotel, right?
In the basement, paint storage room in the basement.
There you go. And then, I remember reading about it in WNYF, right? Years ago, as soon as I heard Sherry Netherland, it's like, hold it, I know the building, So the building's going to behave the way that building behaved. And so it's so important to have that and to be able to capture those lessons and to be able to remember, right, that history. And so I just wanted to put that out there. And that's, I think, one of the things that's been so great about your contributions to the firefighting industry over the years, over such a long time.
Well, one of the things, I remember myself, when you said the chiefs, these chiefs would leave the fire department, and we'd say, "Oh, look at this guy! All that information, all the history he's taken with him." And there was a big chief from Rescue 1 in the 9th Battalion where Jerry Tracy worked. I can't remember his name. He retired, and he had a wealth of Midtown high-rise Rescue 1 and Battalion 9 experience. And when he left, we all said that. But one thing, Charles, they'll never say that about me, because every single thing I know about the fight, I wrote it down. They're never going to say, "Oh, when Vinnie Dunn left, they were all that knowledge." No, it's in one of those books there. There was nothing I really saw, heard, or read about that I didn't write down. So they're not going to say that about me. So
okay, so and again, looking at the big picture here, right?
Yeah.
How do you think we're doing on high-rise building safety? Across fire and other threats. I know we have the kind of the newest things coming on, but is it getting better, getting worse, the same?
Okay, now you're jumping your questions here.
Okay.
Now let me just say, emerging high-rise challenges. Okay, you're not jumping. You want a question too. I like it. All right, because now what are the new challenges that I see from my 15 years of working in the high-rise capital, Division 3, one of them with Division 1 and downtown Brooklyn, Division 11. But in the 3rd Division, the new challenges that you said. First of all, we got the one from Europe, combustible cladding. Now, we haven't had any major fires like Europe or the Middle East, but we're holding our breath. Let's put it that way. So we don't know what this combustible cladding can do. But if we got any buildings in America with this combustible cladding, we're in for a terrible fires racing up the outside of these buildings and then spreading inside on different floors. Combustible cladding is one. Lightweight construction. They're building these high-rise buildings with lightweight construction. If they use lightweight construction, thinner steel columns, that's less weight, so they can build higher. So, like the World Trade Center was the ultimate lightweight constructed high-rise office building. Open web bar joists, 60-foot unsupported, hollow tube columns on the bearing walls, center core, everything is confined to the center core, open floor spaces. That was lightweight construction. And one of the architects bragged about it and said, it's a leap to lightness. That's what they said. It's a leap to lightness. And when I watched that building come down, I was in a gym and I was, what the heck? I went home and I got the fire engineering article from the cellar explosion, from the 93 bomb terrorism attack. And they described the building in it. They said, this is innovative construction. Now, the substructure we found was sturdy with the 93 bombing. It didn't allow the building to topple as the terrorists hoped. But the superstructure was a leap to lightness. Open web bar joists, which we know the NFPA has been telling us for 50 years in the NFPA handbook that can fail if it's unprotected in 5 to 10 minutes of fire. So that was lightweight construction. That was one of the problems. Now, I'm sure when they're building high rises, they're trying to figure out ways to cut costs. And one of the ways is to reduce the size of steel and use those lightweight bar joists, hollow tubes. Well, there's no more frame tube construction, thank God, in New York City that I know of. But that's a problem. And we were talking about the NIST investigation, thanks to Sally Regenhard funding there. Now the NIST pinpointed that spray-on fire retardant to protect steel was a myth. Nobody could tell us how many inches would give us 2 hours of fire resistance on those floors. And then we found out that spray-on was being blown off by the air conditioning in the plenums. So they knew that the steel was not protected properly before those buildings come down. So that's a challenge, protecting the steel, the lightweight design of these high-rise buildings. That's a major challenge. Okay, wind-driven fires. Now, those tall buildings, they are prone to wind-driven fires, because they're the tallest buildings in your community, and they have open floor spaces, office building, and we suffered from that at the Empire State Building fire when that little 7-mile-an-hour wind roared through that 51st floor. We couldn't get out of the stairway for 30 minutes. So wind-driven fire is a challenge. Now, let me tell you another thing. Sheltering in place. This we know we can't get the 3,000 people out of that high-rise building. So they tell us shelter in place. Well, now let me ask you this. Shelter in place depends on, one, the building being fire resistant, stopping fire spreading from floor to floor. And we don't know whether that's true or not. And two, it depends on firefighters being able to extinguish the fire if the sprinklers fail. And we know we can't extinguish a fire in 20 or 30,000 square foot open floor space. So sheltering in place is a major challenge. I question the principle of sheltering in place, or defending in place, as we called it, because that depends. You can tell the people stay there, and we're hoping that building fire doesn't spread up there. But now with the Meridian Plaza fire and with the 911, although that was an unusual fire, but we saw in Building 7 was not hit by the plane. We saw fire spread in Building 7 and collapse. So tell me about sheltering in place. Now, I question it, but I also tell the incident commander and the fire chiefs in the 3rd Division, we got no choice. We have to plan on shelter. We have to hope that sheltering in place works. So far it has, but I'm questioning it. I think that's a challenge. And terrorism, like that would have been 20 years ago, terrorism would have been right up there. But the high-rise office buildings are terror targets, like the World Trade Center is still one New York, one down there, the number 1 building, that's a terror target. If the terrorists want to make a statement, they're going after the highest building in your community. So, and then the old challenges, the old challenges, we talk about the new challenges. I'm saying, hey, how about the elevators failing? How about what John Hodgins' father, when he did that study in 1980, and he found out that 30% of the elevators failed at fires because the sprinkler or a water runoff would short circuit the elevator. They did nothing about elevators. Elevators still fail at high-rise fires. What about communications? NIST said, put an antenna in there. There's no antennas. Some buildings do, but not most high-rise buildings. We still can't communicate in these 100-story buildings we got. Communications are not going to work with the steel and concrete in there. I'll tell you that right now. Even when we got a new radio, I challenge any radio manufacturer, go to the Empire State Building, transmit from the lobby to the top floor, the lobby to the lowest basement. I will come out and advertise your radio. No radio in any fire department can do that. So don't tell me about, and nowadays, we got repeaters, we got post radios. Post radios are great for chiefs, but they abandon the firefighters. Firefighters don't have post radios. So, and I want to tell you something about repeaters. That in the middle of the fire, when fireman said, Chief, we got no communications upstairs. You know how that feels? When you just ran through falling glass, seeing the flame, and the guy said, Chief, we got no communications upstairs. I know how that feels. So then they said, try to repeater. Repeater fails about 60, 70% of the times. It's like a soldier with an M1 rifle. I don't know about rifle. Then give it in the middle of a battle. Here's an M20. Start with this gun. You don't do it that way. The firefighter's radio has to work from the lobby to the top floor, lobby to the lowest basement. They don't. They still don't after 911. That's an old challenge. The construction. Now we know construction is not fire resistant. When I came in the fire service in the 1950s, I used to read the Handbook of Fire Protection, 10th edition, said fire resistant building is a structure that will prevent fire from spreading one floor to another, barring an explosion or collapse. That's the term of fire resistance. Now, you know what NIST says defines fire resistance as? It will burn but not collapse. There's no mention of resisting fire in a type 1 fire resistant building. We have downgraded that term. So the construction, and we saw it in One Meridian Plaza when the sprinklers weren't in effect. There's no passive fire resist. Construction fails. And of course, the fire extinguishing system. Every fire I go to, chief, not enough pressure in the standpipe system, not enough pressure in the standpipe system. And I sent a report to headquarters. And when Steve DeRosa had a fire, high-rise fire, and we had to extinguish it with 2 master streams on the outside. But I sent the report, I said, how come the 5-year test for a standpipe Siamese is 300 PSI, static pressure? I think we test our standpipe Siamese every 5 years by the building code with a static pressure of 300 PSI. And I've got hose that can go up to 600 PSI on the high-rise pumper. Will you please explain that to me? And I was at a test once where we put 400 pounds on a standpipe and the clapper valves were rattling. And then the chief said, no, don't go up to 600 or 500 with the hose. We had that big hose. And he panicked. It was Frank Nastro. He got water on the roof of a high-rise. But I was down with the Siamese, the pressure going in there up to 400. And he finally said, no, cut it, Vin, cut it. And so I question your standpipe systems in these 100-story buildings we have now. Okay, so that's my challenge. They're the challenges, okay?
That was a beautiful answer. All right. So, well, I think you kind of answered the next one, which is how would you rate, the fire service in terms of addressing these challenges today versus 20, 30 years ago?
Okay. What was that question? Give me that question.
Well, how is as an industry, how's the fire service doing today in terms of keeping on top of the high-rise challenges versus 20 years ago when you were, just getting ready to retire?
Okay. Let me tell you something. Now that I'm retired, I'm an old guy. I walk around Fort Totten for my exercise every single day. I write 400 words in the morning. I take a walk at Fort Totten, which is the fire training for SOC and other recruits. I walk around Fort Totten, the fire service, and I see the robotic units there every day, every once in a while, every once a week. I see these guys flying drones around the big field. I go over and I talk to them. And then we have a robotics unit that has drones and robots. So my answer to you is the fire service is definitely keeping up with these new challenges in high rises. And so I question these officers, and they call it the command tactical unit, robotics unit, command tactical unit. I question them. I said, now tell me what you can do for me at a high-rise fire. Well, first they can circle that building. They can see if there's fire at the rear of this high-rise monster, and they can do me a size up. They get a great size up. They fly around the high-rise building. They can go 400 feet above the height of the building they're flying over. And when they check it out, so I said, what's your limit, the height? He says, we're told 400 feet above. So if you got a 1,000-foot building, you can go 400 feet above that. So that's it. But so we can size up these high-rise fires like we never did before because of the robotics unit. We got, I saw the robotics unit posted on Facebook or somewhere, a fire in a strip store. And you could see the fire was spreading in the back, and you could see how the hose streams were missing it. So you could see the drone with the infrared detectors could detect the concealed fire spreading in the rear, and the drones could see the master streams sweeping and missing the fire. So it helped fire size up again, and it showed how good or bad your stream direction was, stream effectiveness. Now, and the other thing is, we work on roofs in the dark. Firefighters fall off roofs all the time. Working in the dark, you fall into the hole and you cut. You fall into a shaft, an open shaft. So operating on a roof at night is a very hazardous thing. So they put the drone up there, and the drone has these high-powered lights. Boom, they light up the whole ceiling, the whole roof area. And the guys come down and say, thank you, thank you. So these drones are doing great safety there. And hazmat, so the hazmat incident, one of the life or death decisions we will talk about later is limiting our laws, how we make a life or death decision. There's 7 principles. And one of the principles is limiting your losses. That's how you make a life or death. And we limit our losses at a hazmat incident because we don't send people, hazmat. And my big job at a hazmat incident is keeping my firefighters out of the hazmat danger area, limiting our losses and getting the people not to contaminate us into a segregated area to limit their spread. So limiting our loss. So now we have this dog Spot goes into a warehouse and with the camera shows the chief the hazard. It can read the chemical description on the drum. And not only that, the unit guy says the dog can open a door. The dog can go to a door and turn a doorknob. They play a game at their fire headquarters on new guys. They have this drone sneak up on them and open the door to the room that they're sitting in and come in. So these drones can make entry into these hazmat. And then another, water rescues. The drone tactical command unit shows me that they get a drone. If you're trapped in the water, you're going down a river, or they can't get out there quick enough. They're trying to set up the boats. The drone goes out there. They've got a little package. You can hold it in your hand, one hand. And they drop this package in the water. It hits the water, opens up as a life preserver. So now they practice dropping this into containers near where people would be calling for help in the water. So they drop these water rescue drops of life preservers with the drone, and chemical bombs. Terrorism is always a consideration. If you got something you think is an explosive, you can send the dog in. He's got the lights. He's got the visual, and they can give commands. They can't receive, but they can say, "Hey, you get out and leave this premises immediately," so they can give commands over with this robot. So now, and not only that, training. How they keep it up with training with this robotic drone, the robotics unit, command tactical unit. When they go to a fire now, boom, they throw the drone up there, and the drone starts to photograph the fire area. And now everybody's doing live stream training. Headquarters is watching the fire. They can give it to certain rescue companies or engine and ladder company. They can give it to the whole job. It's right in the moment training of what's going on. So with this drone, and they can record the fire from above, it's live streaming. They live stream the incident. So I think that's pretty impressive. That's the future of the fire service.
Okay. Any thoughts on the lithium-ion battery issue?
Okay, so
which is causing us a lot of problems.
Oh, I'm curious about that too. I see my cleaning lady disconnects all my battery charges, when she leaves. So I'm trying to plug things in, but now I'm more concerned about lithium-ion batteries. So what really the problem is, they're overcharging them. When they're fully charged, you got to disconnect it. You can't just leave it stuck in your charger and leave it unattended. But when you're charging a lithium-ion battery, I would keep that in a visible place and not unattended. So, and especially when the 3 lights of your lithium battery go on that it's fully charged, you disconnect it. So it's really a fire education problem. I believe the fire service has to do more with the fire education to the public, especially in high-rise residential buildings. But now with this lithium ion battery problem, the fire department education unit should be out there fully engaged, spreading this word that I had to look up, so that's it. The main thing is leaving these batteries charged unattended and overcharging them, letting them charge when they're fully charged. That's the problem. And also they said if you're going to do a battery charge, you better have a dry chemical extinguisher with A, B, and C. Water will make it flash and explode. So you can't extinguish magnesium fires or lithium fires with water. We know what happens. So that we just confine it and put it in a place where it can't spread fire. But that's a major fire education problem. Like living in high-rise office building, that's an education problem. We got to tell people how to do it safely. This lithium battery problem, it's the fire. They better boost the budget of the fire education unit in the FDNY and get that. Remember how we used to do close the door. Well, we want to have a fire education unit commercial saying, unplug the battery when it's charged, unplug the battery, don't overcharge, unplug the battery. So that was it. And in my little research, I saw that they classify the lithium fire as a class B. They don't classify it as a class C, an electrical fire, because the real hazard is the explosion of the lithium. And I've got a video guy sent me of, it's a little typical battery I have in all my devices. The guy unplugged this little AA battery, pulled out this strip of lithium from a battery that we all use, and he threw it in a pan of water. The thing exploded and lit up in fire. This is a lithium battery that we have in this thing here, this lithium battery. If I cut that battery and pull this lithium piece out of it and threw it in a pan of water, it would explode. So anyway, my advice is don't overcharge, don't charge and leave the room. You can but you want to have it in some visible place that's not near a closet. And the main thing is when it's fully charged, disconnect it. Don't leave it overcharging.
Glenn, you want to take the next one?
Sure, Chief. Let's talk about firefighter safety now, and today's fire service in terms of backlash to what some perceive as risk-averse approach to firefighting. So, this is sort of for the last few years now, we've sort of had this emergence of I don't know how to describe this, but sort of like an argument against safety sallies and for pro-aggressive, all hands on deck, all hell bent on getting in and being aggressive. So, what's your thoughts on this sort of where we are in the fire service right now with this sort of situation?
I know what's going on. I can sense it too. But let me tell you something. There's no such thing as risk-averse firefighting. I'm telling you know it, but I'm just restating it. And we know that there's no such thing as risk-averse firefighting. When you run into a burning building, you're taking a big risk just being in that building. So it can't be risk-averse. What the point here is, we don't want to be risk-averse, but what we want to do is to raise risk awareness. Now, what I want to do is show you all the risks that can happen to you, and you make the life or death decision. So when I write something, I say, look, I'm not risk averse. I've been an incident field commander. I'm not a safety chief. I'm not a training chief. I've been a field commander all my life. I was never risk averse. I know we have to put out the fire and save the people and take risks to do that. So as a field commander, I was never risk averse, but I believe in risk awareness. I tell every firefighter what the risks are, and then say, gentlemen, you go make your life or death decision, which we'll talk about later. But I just want the firefighters to know the risks, and then they make the life or death. That's what we worry. That's how we operate. We want the soldiers to be risk takers. We want the firefighters to be risk takers. The commanders, we want them to be risk aware, and we want them to make command decisions that protect the firefighter. Now, here's what I like. I went to the National Fire Academy. We talk about risk awareness. Here's how you make decisions as a fire commander, as a street commander, which I was. I love this. I went to the National Fire Academy and I jumped all over this statement. What are the priorities of firefighting? How do we make decisions at firefighting? And the priorities of firefighting, and they say they never change. And I love anything in the fire service that never changes because everything's changing so fast. But the priorities of firefighting for risks taking are life safety is the first priority of decision making. And life safety includes the lives of firefighters. Didn't always include fire, but now the life safety includes lives of firefighters. Second priority is fire containment. After we protect the firefighter, then I'll worry about putting the fire out. I mean, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm so conditioned, I want to put the fire out and I'll take great risks. But I know when I have a decision that I don't know about, that I've never made before, I fall back on the risk priorities. Life safety is first. Are those firefighters endangered greatly? And then fire containment is second, and property protection is third. Those priorities never change. That's what an incident commander relies on when he's doing a risk evaluation or risk assessment. Okay, so, but one thing we talk about, you can't be risk averse in the fire service. Why? Because running into a burning building, now you're in a battleground. People say, well, construction is dangerous. Coal mining is dangerous. Yeah, they're dangerous profession, but they're controlled dangers. That coal miner, before he goes down or she goes down to the mine today, you don't know. Before they go down to that mine, they got to have shoring put in there. They got to have lighting in there. They got to have air pumping. When we run across a door cell into a smoke-filled room, there's no light, there's no air, may be no air, poisonous gases, and the building can collapse or explode on you in any second. So we work in an uncontrolled environment, whether you want risk or not. When you go into that burning building, you're in an uncontrolled environment. There's nothing you can do about it. The closest thing to the fire ground is the battleground. It's like, you're in a foxhole, shell comes in, boom, that's it. That's the battleground. You're in a burning building, boom, it collapses or explodes. That's the fire ground. So you can't be risk averse in the fire service. And again, when I wrote safety and survival, I was balanced. I'm a field commander. I know I have to put that fire out. I know I have to protect us. I know when my boss comes up, if I have a second alarm, you're going to say, what are you doing here? I can't say, well, I'm protecting the fire. I was a field commander. I felt impelled to put that fire out. I didn't, I wanted to be successful when my boss got here. So I never felt, overwhelmed by being risk averse. I was in the field. I had to put that fire out. So I was not a training chief, not a safety chief, and I was not a retired chief. And when you do that, now I'm retired, I can do a little more safety. I can be a little more risk averse, but I understand about the uncontrolled environment and the fire ground. And you can't be risk averse and be a firefighter or a fire commander. Our job is taking risks. So risk awareness, not risk averseness. And so that's what I say. That's what I say to those guys. You can't be, you're running in a burning building. Don't tell me you're being risk averse. You're in a deadly uncontrolled environment, period.
Okay. Well, so let's go back, and I don't even remember. It was probably sometime after early last year. there was some remarks you made about basically this, which is kind of one of the hot topics in the fire service. It comes and goes, but it's in another high ebb of basically any structure and any condition must be a presumption that there are potentially squatters or residents in that building, and we have to enter it under all circumstances. And of course, we had the terrible fire in Baltimore where the row house, where the members went in. They had a report of somebody, I guess, potentially trapped in the building. The building was fire damaged previously. They went in, the building collapsed. And then here we are a little over a year later, and we have kind of the flip case of that, the fire in Dayton, Ohio. You may have seen like a week or so ago, where they had a vacant large structure. I don't know the circumstances of the fire, but the fire goes out. They find 5 squatters dead who were in the building. So what are your thoughts on that whole, what sense can you impart, or wisdom can you impart to the incident commanders, fire officers, in terms of how you navigate this environment?
Okay, I spent most of my life fighting fires in vacant buildings. I carried John Clancy's casket out of the church, who died in a vacant building. The fire chief, Frank Tutlamunda, who I came in the job with, died. I was at his site, and I watched them pull him out of a vacant building in a stretcher, dead. So I know about vacant buildings. I was called to go up to Worcester after the 6 firefighters died in that frozen food warehouse, trapped and killed in a vacant building, where the people started the fire in that warehouse. The squatters and homeless people started that fire. And when the judge got that case, the judge ruled they were not responsible for the firefighter's death. So I know all about vacant buildings. So I doubled down on that statement. Let me tell you something. A firefighter's death in a vacant building is an unacceptable death class, and we'll talk about that later. A homeless person's death in a vacant building is an acceptable fire death. So let's get that clear. Firefighters dying in a vacant building are unacceptable. Homeless people dying in a vacant building, it's an acceptable loss. And we allow acceptable losses every single day when we stretch a hose line, raise a ladder, respond to a fire, go to a collapse. We always make acceptable, unacceptable life losses. And now we're going to define that later. But so that's it. I doubled down on that statement. John Clancy, Frank Tutlamunda. I carried them out, and I went to that Worcester Memorial up there, and we gave lectures up there, all of us. So I know all about vacant buildings. And when I'm a commander, I don't expect, and I want the firefighters to know that. I hope firefighters don't think that we expect them to risk their lives the same way they do in an occupied building. A person who lives in a vacant building is committing an illegal act. They're in there without anybody's knowledge. Sometimes they light the fire in there. So if they die in there in their own environment where they shouldn't be from a fire that they light, that's an acceptable fire death. A firefighter dies in there trying to save them, that's an unacceptable death. So that's all. We use a veteran. I'm a veteran vacant building firefighter, so I know what I talk about. I spent most of my firefighting in Harlem and the Bronx working on vacant building fires. So I stand by that statement. I don't believe that a homeless person or squatter's life, I know it's sad, is as valuable to me as a commander as a firefighter's life or a fire officer's life.
Okay, let's talk about pull back a little bit to the just general emphasis on health and safety in the fire service, right? And I tell people, students, back in the 70s, of course, you were long on the job at that point, but the New York Firefighters Burn Center, right? There were firefighters in the burn unit, right?
Yes.
All the time.
I would visit them many times. Yeah. I had to visit.
Well, so I'm just, but now, thankfully, right? We've got the new protective equipment. We've had all this advances so that the thermal burns of firefighters are much much reduced over what they were, right? And so as we've gone toward this, and some degree managed to some degree the what I would call the acute risks, right? The wall falls on you, all those things. We've started to look more at the kind of chronic and long-term risks to health. And so, cancer, mental health. And what are your thoughts about this evolution of our definition of health and safety in the fire service?
Well, I think it's about time. And I believe it's underserved. It's cancer and PTSD. It's only starting to come about. Like, for example, my father-in-law, when I was courting my wife, he was a fireman in 53 engine, and he always talked about this famous Captain Martin Sheen. He's an old 1940, 1950 captain, got promoted battalion chief, 12th battalion. And Captain Sheen, they had no masks back then. Captain Sheen, after 35 years, 40 years in the fire service, retires. 6 months later, he dies of lung cancer. Boom, pension's gone. Wife's got to be a matron now to make beds to provide food for the family. That was cancer, 1 woman prior to the mask. Now, I've got a cousin who's got a liver, who worked down at the 911. Oh, Vin, come on down. We're down on the pile. He's got liver cancer. His son was another firefighter, 247 engine, I think. I'm not sure. He's got a what the hell has he got? He's got some kind of a disease on his scalp that they have to shave his scalp. He's had it for 20 years now. And he's got asthma and this thing on his head that they got to shave, and it's scabbed up there from working on that pile nobody knows about yet. Now, so I believe that this cancer and PTSD is something new. Now, I just happen to with this question, I have a good friend, Nancy Carbone. She runs this Friends of Firefighters in Brooklyn. It does counseling and PTSD for firefighters, and it's getting into suicide now. Now we're talking about PTSD and cancer. Cancer, we know, is a fire problem, firefighting problem. Last year, 23 firefighters committed suicide in the nation. 20. She won't give me the number in New York City. We keep that concealed. But last year, several firefighters in New York City committed suicide. So suicide is a problem. She's trying to get her Friends of Firefighters to include suicide as one of the things she's doing. So, and like she said to me, you tell the firefighters, you may be alone in a room, but you're never alone in the fire service. There is help available. And Friends of Firefighters, and we have a counseling service in the fire department, they are available. And this is very informal. Nancy Carbone, Friends of Firefighters, they got a firehouse in Brooklyn. They're trying to take over Rescue 2. They have another fire where people with, feeling not good can go and sit and talk and hang out in a firehouse. It looks just like a firehouse with a housewife's desk and everything. So I think that this is an overdue shift from trauma and burns to cancer and PTSD.
Okay. Let's see, just to let everybody on the line know, if you want to start sending questions in via chat, we're going to open it up here in just a couple of minutes. Glenn, do you want to talk about post 9/11 a little bit, and then we'll go over into the question and answer phase?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I just it's certainly an appropriate time to talk about Chief Dunn's involvement with a lot of the issues of 9/11. And for those of you who aren't familiar with his role, Sally Regenhard's on the call with us right now. As Chief Dunn mentioned earlier, lost her son, Christian Regenhard, on 9/11. And she turned into perhaps perhaps the most notable fire safety advocate that's here today. And one of the things she did is create the Skyscraper safety campaign right after 9/11. which led to a variety of things, including congressional hearings and the passage of a law for investigating large-scale disasters through the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST. And the connection here is that Chief Dunn was one of the key players in making a lot of these things happen. We met with Chief Dunn in the early days of 9/11 to talk about, what had happened and what was needed and what we need to look at and what advocacy issues that we wanted to put forward. All those kind of things happened, and it's remarkable that Chief Dunn and Sally particularly were able to immediately understand what was going on and what needed to be done. And so a lot of those things did in fact happen. We ended up with, as a net result, we ended up with a lot of changes to the building and fire code specifically that sort of turned the clock back a little bit on this perhaps still problematic issue of fire resistance, but also advanced radio communications, at least for new buildings going forward, new high rises, and not just high rises, but larger structures, and just a whole variety of different things. But Chief Dunn brought an incredible amount of knowledge and ability to the situation, and he ended up being one of the first members of the Skyscraper Safety Campaign's advisory board. And of course, that, as I mentioned earlier, led to the advocacy work to get a federal inquiry, which NIST conducted. And Chief Dunn ended up working with NIST on a variety of issues regarding 9/11 and high-rise firefighting in general, basically. And so we want to thank the both of them for what they did, because it literally affected high-rises really across the country. Charles didn't mention earlier, but another thing that came out of that was the NFPA created a high-rise committee that is a standalone committee that advises the other codes and standards through the NFPA on emerging high-rise issues. So I just want to express thanks on behalf of Charles and I for, Vinny, your work with Sally and us advancing those those concerns and things. I mean, we made a point of it right after 9/11. 9/11 and the World Trade Center was a lightning rod for many issues that even existed, of course, before 9/11, issues of high-rise construction and things. I mean, Chief Dunn mentioned before that the Trade Center was a very lightweight building, not a traditional design, one in which there were no sprinklers when they put those buildings up, which is remarkable. 40,000 square foot of floor with no sprinklers. And the fire department was not happy with that. And of course, it was the Port Authority, New York and New Jersey, who did that and ignored the FDNY. And it was, I guess, to a great extent, the insurance industry that forced sprinklers into those buildings later on, because nobody would rent space, and the insurance industry wouldn't insure people in the World Trade Center. That's how dangerous they thought it was. Yeah. So Vinny, any thoughts about your involvement with Skyscraper Safety and Sally and NIST and that?
Oh, you were there. It was you, I, and Sally. I mean, and Sally was the mover and shaker. I mean, she was, a dynamic person. And like I said to you, they were talking about making a statue to her in the campus of NIST, National Institute of Standards Technology, for all the funding she got them. So they love Sally Regenhard, and we do too. And so she was the mover, and along with you, I was a technical assistant, but Sally was wonderful, and she did more for the fire service in America than any of us, actually. So if Sally's there, give her my regards. And then we got to go out to dinner too, or lunch. I still want that lunch with Sally and you. And it was a tremendous effort. We had to appear at all those hearings, and we had to have our notes. And I remember repeating the same 10 requirements we wanted for high-rise: zero tolerance for non-sprinkler buildings, high-rise buildings, zero tolerance for open web bar joists. We were pleading, to have these changes made. And we got some, and we did the best we could.
Yeah, and actually that one about the open web bar joist, that's still in the New York City building code because of 9/11. It's prohibited
Yeah,
unless someone can present a viable, buildable, fireproofing capability for open web bar joist. And the fact that no one has in 20 years come forward with that tells you something about the ability to put spray-on fireproofing on open web bar joist. Can't be done. Can't be done.
Yeah, one of the interviews for the architect, he said he should have chosen in the bar joist web members. He should have had angle bars. He had round bars, and you can't put the spray on the round bars. So that was he admitted that mistake. I mean, just the open web bar joist was the NFPA complains about for 50 years and still do. I love to quote that section. Open web bar joist unprotected can fail within 5 or 10 minutes, and they certainly did at that 9/11 World Trade Center. And floor failure was always, even in the structural steel buildings, floor collapse at every serious fire. One New York Plaza, LA fire, First Meridian, and Meridian Plaza fire. The floors are cracking. The floors are bowing, cracking, and fire is spreading up through the concrete. So we knew the problems. NIST just made them more available and more pronounced.
And so many of those issues over the years and things. So Charles, you're looking to move on to the next question?
Sure. So, and again, people don't be shy. If you haven't figured it out, Chief Dunn's a very approachable person. So this is your chat. This is your shot to, one-on-one get a question in. But Chief, what, to the newly promoted battalion chief, whether they're in Peoria or, New York City, you kind of put your arm around their shoulder and offer, 30 seconds of advice as they're stepping off the, dais with their white hat, and the new badge. What would you tell them?
Okay, I would tell them a lot of things that are similar to what I would tell a firefighter. The first thing is they better stay in shape, because heart attacks are the number one killer, and chiefs often die of heart attacks. So stay in shape. You got to run. I run, so because that's what you're going to do with a fire. So that's, that's one of the things. Stay current. There's big changes taking place in the fire service, robots, drones. How do you stay current? You go to these conferences. You go to fire engineering, firehouse conferences. You go to National Fire Academy. That was an eye opener to me. I would tell any chief to go down there to get a nationwide view of the fire service, not just your city view or your local town view. Go to that National Fire Academy, get the big picture, sit down in that pub with a guy from LA, with a guy from Chicago, a guy from Florida and Philadelphia, and see what their chief's problems are. They're the same as yours. So stay current. NIOSH, I love NIOSH. You want to think about big data? Those NIOSH fatal fire investigations, they have everything you want to know about firefighter deaths. They are tremendous resources to go to. I would tell them, you're in the death profession. I would tell an aspiring new chief or an old chief, you're still in the death profession. Chiefs die. Bill Feehan, my friend, 911 died. Frank Tutlamondo, I came on the job with. He was a chief, 44th Battalion. He died. Tom Riley, 3rd Division at my 23rd Street Fire. He died. Chiefs get killed at fire, and all those other chiefs at 911 I didn't mention. But so you're not immune. You're still in the death profession with the military, with the police, and with the fire service. These are death professions. So that's it. Know that, realize that. And look at your chief. I tell them, as to aspiring chief officer candidates, look at that chief, because that's what you're going to become like. You're not going to change the job. We had a question on the test. Does the man change the job, or man or woman change the job, or the job change the man or woman? And we all got the question wrong. We said, a man changes the job. They said, no, the job changes the man or woman, because you will become like that chief that you want to be like. whether you want to or not. So that's all. I would tip him off. That's what's going to happen to him. And look at the chief, because that's what you're going to be. And support your boss. I mean, I know it's tough. And sometimes your boss, especially when your boss makes a decision you don't like, you got to support the guy. And if you get a chance to work with, I worked downtown. I went downtown with a very tough boss who made some bad, tough decisions, John O'Hagan. But it was an eye-opener, and I'm glad I went down there. I made some big decisions. But I would say go down, work with your boss if you get the opportunity. So then when you see the stresses he's under, you realize if you're lucky enough to get that top job, you're gonna have to deal with those stresses. Those stresses are the same decade after decade. Nothing changes at headquarters. It's the same problems down there. So get a chance, go down there, see what they are, get forewarned. Work with the unions. Or, you're management now, you're gonna be management as a chief, but you gotta work with unions. I work with unions. Sometimes, it's tough. You gotta, keep your management responsibility, and you gotta, deal with the unions. It's touch and go, but you can do it. I did it. I worked with the unions, and I kept my management responsibility to myself. So that's all. And then you got to remember, sometimes when the union management conflicts get explosive, say, look, wait a minute, don't get carried away too much, because we're going to have to work together again after this union issue is over. So don't get too carried away, but try to work with the unions. It can be done. People don't know union, all management, no, you can do it. And family, and your family, all you aspiring guys who want to be chief, when you finally make chief, you're going to turn around and say, you know what? I couldn't have made this if it wasn't my wife and children and family. So balance your life between your job, which I was, I wanted to become a chief. I balanced. It was very difficult. I'm telling you that, but I was married for 60 years, sometimes good, sometimes bad, but I maintained 60-year marriage. So you got to balance your life between work and family life. Okay, life or death decision-making. I would tell you aspiring chiefs and any chief that hasn't been to the fire academy, that doesn't know the priorities of risk-taking decisions or firefighting. Life safety is first decision-making. Is everybody's life safe? And that includes firefighters. That's how you, when you don't have a situation, you don't know what to do, worry about your life. Fire containment is second. Property protection is third. I love those firefighting priorities, and chiefs should all know them and comply with them. And then, one of the things I would tell a veteran chief, is, one day I was the deputy chief for 7 years, and I'm firing rubber bands against the wall in the fire office. I'll say, I'm bored. I think I need some new, something new in my life. So I said, should I retire or what? And, I said, wait a minute, I don't want to retire. And then I read this article about making a horizontal move in the corporation. If we're all field commanders. We come up as field commanders, and that's what we need to do, become field commanders. But you can make a horizontal move in the fire service. You want to go to training? You can be a training chief. That's a great thing to pass on some of your knowledge. You want to go to headquarters, become an administrator. I mean, I know chiefs who ran boroughs and would go down to headquarters, and they really ran fire headquarters. The chief was a figurehead, but the fire deputies, they ran the administration. So you can be an administrator, a trainer, and then of course you can teach, become an expert and teach what you want, but make a horizontal move, administrative training, and don't retire. I found that brilliant guys would rise up through the ranks, and then make their deputy chiefs or chiefs rank, and then get out. I used to keep track of how long they stayed in their position. Assistant chiefs would get out in 4 years. They lasted. And we lose the town. A pension is responsible for it. A great pension takes away the cream of the crop. Brilliant guys, they take the pension, and we lose their really skills. So that's all I would say. Don't retire for that pension, because none of them ever achieve a rank as prestigious as a fire commander or a fire chief. There's nothing out there. I was forced retired after 65. I was in the world of fire. There's nothing that matched a deputy chief or battalion chief in FDNY. That is prestigious position. So think carefully before you go out and become an investigator, or some other job. You're a brilliant fireground commander, got life and death skills that you can help save people. So stay in the job. They say either get out at 20 or become a lifer. I think we should have more lifers, and there should be incentives for you to stay in. But you don't need an incentive. The fire service itself, if I came back, I would be a better fire chief, better firefighter. The fire service is so prestigious now. It wasn't as prestigious when I felt when I was in it. Sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees, but I'll tell you why it's prestigious. Unfortunately, it's prestigious because of those 343 firefighters who died in 9/11. Before 9/11, before Christian Regenhard died at that probationary firefighter died at 9/11, nobody knew what firefighters did. Nobody cared what firefighters did. After 9/11, and then they saw what we sacrificed. We are the gods of city government. The advertisers, they show firefighters all at the time. We are now on a pedestal, which sometimes we don't deserve. But 9/11, the sacrifice of 343 firefighters like Christian Regenhard gave, is what we're benefiting by. So we're a very prestigious organization, the fire service. So, and one more. Let's see. Again, become an expert in some field. We do more than firefighting now. Look at this: drone units, robot units. You got. There's so many field medical emergencies, vehicle extrication, hazmat incidents. Specialized chief officer, specialized. Go down to National Fire Academy, teach that subject. Pass it on. So that's what we all have to do. Somebody said, if you're not helping people, you're wasting your life. That's it. We help people in the fire service. So that's what we do. And that's what your mission is. When you become a chief, now you got to decide, how can I help people? And then, or if you don't, you're going to waste your life. So that's it. That's my advice.
Well, that was fantastic, Chief. I must say that was. I'm glad we had that on tape. So let's take a question here, and I don't know. This is not. Oh, well, go ahead. Oh no, we can't get through all those, Chief. We're not going to get through the whole list. No, we gotta. I mean, we could. Well, then we'll do part two. But yeah, let's get some questions in. So we got a couple here, and then I think we'll go because we're rolling up on 3 o'clock here.
Okay.
Not that we have a hard stop, but we can.
Okay. No.
So the question is on. I don't know that this really is directly, in your wheelhouse, but the question comes up: why can't lithium batteries be programmed for automatic shutdown when the device is fully charged? And the same for these mobility devices. And I know some of this is it's all market forces, right? And requirements.
They probably could, but it's market forces, and they're not going to do it. I mean, we have to take responsibility, for our actions. So that gentleman and that question is correct. They can, I'm sure, some scientists can develop a battery like that. They may do that and prevent these fires, and that would be very good if they do it. But right now, the responsibility is on us, and we have to prevent fires. And we have to know that don't overcharge the battery. Disconnect the battery when it's charged. That's what we have to do until some genius comes up and makes a battery that can self charge.
Yeah, and the city council just passed, I think it was 4 or 5 measures. Some of them are window dressing, but some related to public education, but they want to regulate the sale of lithium-ion batteries to only those that are listed by a testing lab, and also want to try to prohibit the recycling, which apparently is an issue. Now, this is a bit of a black hole for me, and there's not a lot out there in the public domain in terms of, of all this. But anyway, it's a real challenge.
Recycling. I asked my friend, who's an expert in this, in many things, this fellow Lou Werner. But I said, Lou, what do you do with your batteries? He says, I take the old batteries to my recycling plant, and they have a place for them. Or he takes other batteries to Home Depot. So you can't just throw them in a garbage. You're creating a possible hazard. So that's what you take your old batteries to Home Depot where you purchase it, or your recycling plant. And they have facilities so they don't create fires and as rubbish.
Sorry, I was going to get a clarification on one of the questions that came up. It was just occurred to me before we wind up here. Jerry, Tracy, do you want to have anything you want to chip in, or any shots you want to take at Chief Dunn while you've got him on the captive here?
I would never take any shots at Chief Dunn. He's been a mentor to me my whole career, to tell you the truth. Well, one of my, let's say, interests and a peeve is smoke control. And, we've incorporated, let's say, ventilation support groups in the response of 1076, 1077, which is basically an all hands in a high-rise building, whether it be office or residential. And because of the research that we've conducted on let's say, the use of portable fans to pressurize stairwells in those buildings that do not have fixed systems. I don't believe that the department utilizes the ventilation support groups enough, meaning to ask for them to pressurize those stairwells as early as possible. Because, of what you said, it's life safety, it's civilians and firefighters. If we can keep those arteries in the building clear of smoke, we're doing just that. We're protecting life, both firefighters and civilians. And that's just a pet peeve of mine. I don't believe that the department is doing enough.
Stair pressurization is great for the firefighters. If you can keep that stair clear and create the positive pressure, and then, when you're advancing in with your hose line, that fire and smoke is not coming at you. So yes, we could vent stairs more. It really should be an automatic response to that event, to a 1076 or 1077. And like when we had, just like foam, when we got into a problem with foam, we created a foam unit. And I would always special call a foam unit anytime I had a cellar fire. And at a high-rise fire, 1076, 1077, they should automatically respond. We got the high-rise unit, even the high-rise unit that brings the bottles. They should have the fan and the capability and the skill to set up the fan in that stairway and positive pressure the stairway. No, I agree, Jerry. Good point.
Yeah. The chief that you referred to earlier, Captain of Rescue 1 and the 9th Battalion, was Brian O'Flaherty.
Brian, and who was the old time before
O'Hagan.
Brian? No, there was another guy. Who was the guy with O'Hagan high-rise fire tests? He was like the coordinator. There was a battalion chief coordinator from the 9th Battalion, old Irishman from Rescue 1. He had, you'll know his name, and but when he left, and of course all those guys, Brian O'Flaherty, he was a wealth of information too. But so that's why Brian, God Lord rest his soul. Yeah. Brian was he had all, you could ask him a question. I did one day, and he had me for half an hour in the firehouse, telling me about, and it was amazing the stuff he had at his fingertips. But Brian was a real wealth of information and experience too. Now we lost so many people at the 911 that was the middle. They were the best and the brightest. And now, of course, Brian I always think of him. He was probably the most heroic, knowledgeable rescue veteran, before Ray Downey. But here he was, the last fire, running for his life when those steel columns were flying all over downtown streets, and he got hit, injured by it. But how do you leave a job that you're a major player in Rescue One, running for your life, from these steel beams, which we all would have been doing. But it's just a terrible tragedy and a terrible, way to I'm sure he can never bask in the true sunshine of his skill and his experience that he provided for the FDNY. I often think of him.
John O'Rourke was in the 9th Battalion, but I don't believe he was in Rescue One.
This guy wasn't a well-liked guy. Nobody liked him. He was not well-liked. And Steve DeRosa said, as soon as Steve DeRosa would report the duty in the night, this old guy would run out to catch the train and not say anything. But you'll know his name. He was one of the old school, the Irish Mafia from Rescue One and the 9th Battalion. But a landmark of a guy. I will definitely get his name and email you his name, and you will say,
right. All right, before we contribute to any slander here, let me get Sally Regenhard is actually on the line, and so I'll go ahead, Sally. You got to unmute.
Okay. Vinnie Dunn, thank you so much for this fantastic presentation. I really want to tell you, Vinnie, that what you have done for the fire service regarding 9/11 really cannot be fully understood by the public. Your knowledge, your expertise, all your efforts regarding the deadly mistakes of the system that allowed something like 9/11 to happen, the construction, so on and so forth. There were 3 people who were the foundation of my advocacy on 9/11. And certainly that was Glenn Corbett, Charles Jennings, both from John Jay College, and yourself. And, without the 3 of you, we wouldn't have made any headroads, but especially you, because you being a former member of the FDNY, you were lionized, you were an iconic person, and all of these improvements, the 3 of you helped NIST, enact these improvements or suggest them. I really am very amused by your mention of a statue of me outside of NIST. I don't know if they wanted to make a statue or to hang me in effigy, because they didn't like a lot of these improvements and these challenges to the system that we brought up. So I have to say that really we owe you everything, Vinnie Dunn, and you're a fantastic person. I wanted to say one more word. You said about public pressure with the, self shut off batteries.
Yes.
You know what? Public pressure can affect market forces, and so can the fire department, and so on and so forth, and the administration of New York City. So I hope that, we can achieve that. And then finally, I'd like to say there are some I want to thank all the people that participated today, but I see familiar friends who helped us so much and experts. I wanted to say hello to Jerry Tracy. I wanted to say hello to Bob Till and to Michael Trencher, who was actually an architect who was on our side. He and his colleagues did a wonderful job to help us too. So thank you. Vinnie Dunn, you're amazing. And yes, we're all going out to lunch very soon with God's help.
Yeah, but you were the mover and shaker. You got us all working. Without you, without your direction, and without your toughness, none of that 911 investigation would have happened. You were dogged, tenacious, and you made everybody toe the line. So you were really the move of this organization, the Skyscraper Life Safety. But you were amazing, and of course, with your son motivating you, and we needed you because we could not think outside the box. You thought outside the box. You know, who would ever think we could get NIST to do anything from New York City? I was on the phone call with you when you were yelling at the NIST investigation. He said, okay. So I saw you in action, and Glenn did too. So we know who the real motivator was and mover and shaker was. It was you, Sally Regenhard.
Thank you, Vin. But you know what? It was, of course, it was all about my son. And I think, you know, you can never underestimate the motivation of a mother.
I know that.
And that's what it was. And of course, it was the public who paid attention, and all the other families that supported us, that showed up to our demonstrations. And I also have to mention another iconic person who helped us so much, and that was the attorney Norman Siegel. Norman Siegel did so much for us and taught me everything I knew about getting my word out to the public and the press, media. Norman is devoted to the cause of 9/11 and to all the firefighters and others who perished. So he's another one. So it really took a village, if
yes.
by saying that. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. You're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ah, boy, the and you know, Sally, I know you never like to accept the praise, but yeah, none of us would be here today talking about this if not for you. Because but we'll I just want to, as we're wrapping up here, we got another Paul Kearns, and to Michael Trencher. I don't know, Michael, if you want to say hi, if you're still on the line, that would be great to hear from you. I haven't seen you in quite a while. You had me out to give a talk probably 10 years ago or more. But we've got Paul Kearns, one of our faculty at John Jay, recently retired from Teaneck, New Jersey. And he says, Chief, I don't have a question, but wanted to say thank you for the impact you had on my career and development as a firefighter. Your insights have been invaluable to me. So here we are, however many years later, and you know, and we're on the phone together. So I think the 1980 whatever 86 Charles Jennings would be probably wouldn't have thought that in 2023 he'd be interviewing Vincent Dunn, and I've certainly valued our relationship over the years, and we certainly, I think I speak for everybody in the fire service when I say that you've really been an exemplary model of service and education and training and giving back to the field, and of course you've done it all with as you know, an engaging, likable, pleasant fellow, and so I just want to thank you for that and appreciate your contributions, your ongoing contributions.
Okay, so thank you for that. But your last question is, how did I stay engaged?
Oh yes.
That answer is by knowing guys like you, Charles Jennings, and Glenn Corbett, and Charlie Regenhard. That's how I stayed vital and engaged, with knowing you three people.
Well, I'll accept that graciously, and thank you very much. And so I think that's a good spot to finish up. I just want to thank Chief Dunn again, and I will take a moment to remind us of our upcoming events. If I can get that screen to show. Oh, just bear with me for a quick second. Glenn, do you want to fill the air while I find the last slide here?
Sure. Chief Dunn, like I said, you're an icon in the fire services. You're one of a kind, and we all really appreciate you. I had so many great discussions with you over the years, and just it's been an incredible thing. And now we can say New Jersey owns you now, though. Okay, New Jersey. Okay. So,
Charlie's Smokey.
Charlie sees.
He's got my number.
So if anyone on the call wants to see Chief Dunn, he always appears in New Jersey now. So he's got extended engagement.
Vincent Dunn's Fire Battlespace too.
Yes,
Vincent
yes.
Dunn's Fire Battle. Every night I put a poem, I put poetry on there, and my memoir and my Skyscraper book.
It's
So-
incredible.
Yes, so that's the plug. The book is available at vincentdunn.com, but Vincent's site on Facebook is Vincent Dunn's Firefighter Battlespace, and go there for his most recent content. As you see on the screen, these are our other events for the semester. Next month, we're going to have a discussion on smart buildings and emergency response. And then in May, we're going to have Bob Henley on here to let it all hang out on the politics of public safety in New York City and how things happen, or in a lot of cases don't happen. And so I'm looking forward to both of those, and I hope you will join us. With that, I just want to thank everybody for attending. Thank you again, Sally. Thank you, Michael Trencher, of course, Glenn, and of course, Chief Dunn. It was great doing this, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good day.
Here, folks.